Good morning. It's been a while. It's hard for me to go live in the summer because my routine is different, but I'm rolling. So I'm gonna roll with you, boo. Just waiting for some people to get on. It looks like my reception is kind of low, which is trash. I've only got 2 bars here, so I hope my video doesn't cut in and out. Good morning, everyone, if it's still morning where you are. Good morning. Good morning. So, summer is almost over, unfortunately. It's really sad. It's very, very sad. Allô, chez la rue. La rue. La rue. Yeah. But what that means is that once my son starts school, I will be back to my regularly scheduled programming of going live once, twice, 3 times a week on Instagram. So lucky for you. But today, what I want to talk about is really for so many of you who don't follow me on Twitter, where I am most active. You really missed the goods. But, hey Layla, but Shar, I was wondering if that was really you, Shar, with Charlene, with the real Instagram account. I didn't know if like somebody had like made a fake account with all your pictures. And so I was like, should I follow back? Let me check first. But anyways, so for those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, where I really post so much every day, probably too much. I know probably most of my followers got me muted because I post so much on Twitter, but I've been working on blogging more frequently. So you should go to my website, thepeoplesoracle.com, and make sure that you're subscribed to get updates because I'm posting there more frequently. So anyways, that brings me to my whole entire point for coming on here today, which was to talk about this shift that's about to occur. And I've been like thinking about this and meditating on this for weeks because it's gonna be such a drastic change in the energy. So basically, I just want you to like feel this moment right now, and all of the energy and circumstances, the atmosphere, your life, the world around you. I want you to like really absorb that, and then I want you to recognize that this whole atmospheric energy that you're feeling, all of this is going to shift quite dramatically starting tomorrow, August 8th. So just really feel this, feel the sensitivity in your body, kind of that heaviness, the slowness, a bit of a staleness, but also feeling very vulnerable and on guard, and lots of watching and being vigilant because of the kind of political atmosphere in the world, and of course things that are going on with your physical body and in your most intimate personal relationships. So I want you to think of this moment right now that you're in today as a kind of rest period. I want you to like really breathe and lay back into it, because tomorrow all of that begins to shift. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the fact that really since June, planets have been marching towards and kind of having a little meeting in your Cancer house. And so this is why since June you've been focused on your own physical body. You might be more sensitive to your moods and energy levels. Your immediate needs have really outshadowed and outshined all of your more longer term plans, focusing on, food and what you're eating, the safety of your body and shelter, whether that means you've moved, your lease is up, or you're really thinking about what is required to meet and maintain your immediate needs. This has been the focus of the conversation since June. So we've been talking about home, we've been talking talking and thinking about our mother, and we've really been thinking about, whether consciously or subconsciously, how have I been taught to respond to the needs of my body? And is that kind of adaptation that I've taken on, or that method that was mirrored to me by my caregivers, meaning that, your body's needs, you were taught how to interpret them and how to respond to them by the way that your caregivers did. And so over this past month, we've definitely been thinking so much about that, and it's been something of really focus. Those of us who have Capricorn, Aries, and Libra have been, and this is sidereal, always, never tropical. Those of us who have Capricorn, Aries, and Libra have been feeling really weighed down by this energy, because it's forced us to temper our ambitious natures and our desire to be in control and take the lead, and really focus down on what matters most. So we get a little shift, a big shift and a change beginning tomorrow, because Mars is going to be the first planet to get us up out of this Cancer sludge. Mars is going to enter Leo, and so 1 month from now, 1 month from today, all of these planets that, I've been thinking about that, Layla, but I know it's only gonna be a few people who are really about that life, and plus I'm not trying to start a cult. So, but anyways, 1 month from today, all of these planets that are currently in Cancer, Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, will all be in Leo. That is such a huge and dramatic shift that I had to come on here and make a video about it. It's so dramatic to go from water, which is your instinct to respond to hunger and tiredness, the physiological sensation of emotions, the relational environment around your most basic needs. This is a shift from that to what I describe for Leo as the entitlement for your perceptions and judgments to matter and be validated. And what I mean by that is that in order to function in the world, you have to have a base level of trust in your perceptions that says what I am seeing and my judgment of this is real, right? This is a car in front of me, right? This person is my parent. This is grass and it's green. Hi, thank you. Hey, Tatiana. So there's a very basic, fundamental kind of function of being human where we need to be able to trust, and we need to be able to really believe what we see, right? Now, this is a really, 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 really important topic given the current, political climate, because the fact of the matter is that what you perceive and how you perceive says more about you than it does about what you're actually perceiving. Is the language of instinct different than biology? I will pause and answer that. I'm not quite sure what you mean by the language of instinct, but I think you're asking me about physiology, and that's the most important thing about water signs, is that they're physical. And this is not physical in an aggressive or an athletic way. This is physical as in physiological, as in biological. So I think the answer to your question, Charlene, is yes, that the language, or is no, that the language of instinct is biology, that it's the language of instinct is what you're feeling in your body, not what you think about it and not what you judge about it, which is very different than Leo, because Leo is about the judgment of that. So I can have a series of physiological experiences in my body, but it is my judgment and my adeptness of language that allows me to call it fear. I can feel grumbling in my stomach, weakness, fogginess, inability to focus, but it is my perception and judgment that allows me to call that, and my adeptness with language that allows me to call that hunger. And so Leo shifts the focus from feeling the feeling to judging and perceiving, right? And so again, our judgments and perceptions about other people and the world around us and even ourselves says more about our identity than it does about some so-called objective reality about the way the world exists. This is really important because people who have Leo prominent and dominant in their charts, that means you are Leo rising, you have the sun in Leo, you have 3 or more planets in Leo. This is a very important topic in time, and they'll understand this because for those people, their own perceptions and judgments have almost always been defined by prominent men in their life, whether that's father or grandfather, teachers, male bosses, and authority figures. So people who have placements in Leo have always had this internal dialogue or external experience of figuring out how much authority men in their life have, but also not really even sometimes perceiving. I see this all the time with clients. People will have like 5 planets in Leo, and I'll be like, tell me about your dad, and then they'll start talking about their mom, but they'll talk about their mom within the context of their father. Like, well, since my dad was in the military, so let's just pause and put a period right there, because if your dad is in the military, that's determining everything about where you live, everything about where you put down roots, what school you go to, what friends you have, what country you're in, right? And so mom is just, a soldier in the army as well, taking the general's orders. So when we move into this Leo, we shift very dramatically from women, mother, home, and the body to men, fathers, male leaders out in the world. We shift to really thinking deeply about how our identity informs our perceptions and judgments. Meaning that, again, how you judge something says more about you than it does about the thing that you're judging. Meaning that we tell stories about our world and the people in it in order to shore up our own identity. I'm going to say that again. We tell stories about our world and the people in it. We make judgments whose primary function is to shore up our own identity. This makes me think and remember about this video that's gone viral from CNN. And please forgive me because I do not remember the person's name, but it was a black man. And the very last thing that he said in that video is what struck me the most. He said a phrase, freedom from whiteness. And this is something that is potent right now because of another video going around of our now ancestor Toni Morrison. And there's a video of her with whatever that guy's name, not Pete Rose, that's a baseball player, Rose, whatever his name is, the new show on PBS, where she's talking about if we take Eddie Glauce Jr., thank you, if we take away your whiteness and you're just left with little old you, what do you have? She said, if the only reason that you are tall is because somebody else is on their knees, right? Again, this is talking about identity and the stories that we tell about other people. Somebody mentioned the words projection and narrative. Projection is not a bad thing, okay? So this is important. Charlie Rose, thank you. Y'all helping me out so much today. Projection is not bad. Projection is only bad when you insist and cannot ever get past the fact that this projection and how you perceive another person is about you, right? That we must project in order to experience ourselves, but individuation means, and these are Carl Jung's words, individuation means that eventually I recognize that my opinion and judgment and emotional response to you is more about me than it is about you, right? So where was I going with this, right? So when we talk about these identities, of whiteness and blackness. And you know, Eddie Glauce Jr. and Toni Morrison both speaking to us about, why do you need to be white? It's like, you need to be white. Why? Right? Why do you need to be white? What is that affording you? Why must I be black to your white? Again, I'm going to repeat this because whenever I get these little things that I start harping on, I know there's going to be a huge topic coming up. Why, you know, what are the identities and stories that you, what are the identities and stories that you need? Why do you need to be this thing? And who are you when you take it away? Right? What identity do you have when you don't have that language anymore to identify yourself? Right? If we take away whiteness, right? The other thing that I want to say is that specifically for America and the U.S., I just posted yesterday the introduction to the predictions for the U.S. that I never published because I just never got around to it. I did a lot of research and started to is that curve yellow? Yes, it is. And started to write about, but I just really didn't get a chance to get it done. What I ended up doing was just publishing the introduction to that piece, which was about Aquarius rising in the U.S. Aries Ingress chart, which is a chart cast and interpreted to make interpretations for a nation or country. And I talked in depth about Aquarius and Aquarius being the insignia of American democracy, which rejects monarchical rule in order to self-govern. So self-governance and self-determination, these are all Aquarius words. Why am I bringing this up? Because Leo is the sign opposed Aquarius. So for me, this period where we get a stellium in Leo is probably going to be one of the most intense moments of the year. It has me wondering who are the people inside and outside of America who embody this Leo energy to challenge our self-governance and to challenge our self-determination as a nation. Again, as always sidereal, never tropical, my people. Just please remember that, you know, when you brush your teeth in the morning. Always sidereal, never tropical. So there's that. The last thing that I want to say, and if you just joined me, you got here for the good stuff. The last thing that I want to say is that whenever we have particular signs being occupied that have been the location of important transits such as eclipses. And what I'm referring to is August and September of 2017, when we had a total solar eclipse in Leo that ran concurrently with a Mercury retrograde in Leo that culminated with a conjunction to Mars in Leo at that eclipse degree. All of that is astrology to say what was going on in your life in August and September of 2017. What was going on in the world in August and September of 2017. Think back. What was happening in your life? I read for a lot of Leo risings in August, July, June, of 2017. And because I have a lot of Leo rising clients, and you guys were going through and getting the flux in your relationships and partnerships, whether it was with your primary romantic partner, your ex, your baby daddy, your baby mama, whatever it may be. August and September of 2017 for us collectively was when we saw real violence as a consequence of the words and reality of Donald Trump. And so I don't really think that it's a stretch or far-fetched to say that this moment we're in now is also a consequence of that moment. So that once we get to August and September of 2019, we have this same energy brought back. And when I say same energy, I don't mean that the exact same events occur again. What I mean is that the story that dominated your life in August and September of 2017 is the story that is going to dominate August and September of 2019. August and September of 2019 features everything. There's a small time, the new moon in Leo, which is, I believe, at the end of August. The new moon in Leo will have Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, all in Leo. I think that new moon is at what, like 14 degrees? Let me see. I'm looking at my 2019 sidereal iCal and planetary transits. So the new moon is on August 30th at 12 degrees Leo. So that new moon will be square Jupiter in Scorpio and trine Saturn in Sagittarius. Which brings me to the final thing that I'm going to say. I haven't said this anywhere because I'm just really wary about saying certain things publicly, because I know that some people might misinterpret it, but that's just the nature of words, that people will take what you say and make whatever they want of it. I spent last week pulling up charts for all of the major hurricanes, including the ones that happened in August and September of 2017. And they all had one thing in common, with the exception of Hurricane Katrina, which was that every single major, I pulled up probably about 7 or 10, which were the most destructive hurricanes in history. And every single one of these charts had planets in Leo square Scorpio. I don't care if that hurricane happened in October, November, August. That hurricane, the chart for when it formed, had planets in Leo and Scorpio. That's important because, in August and September of 2017, planets in Leo were squaring Saturn in Scorpio, and there were several named storms that caused catastrophic damage in Puerto Rico. We had Harvey, Irma, Maria, all of those really big storms that were devastating in 2017. And so my point in saying this is that there is a strong possibility of active hurricanes that are very destructive once we get into late August and September of 2019. There's also a strong possibility that we have violent clashes of protesters. The difference is that we have 2 years of waking the fuck up under our belts, so that now people are openly saying the words white supremacist, racist, inciting violence. They're saying all of the words that they would not say in 2017. And so now in 2019 that this story is back. We now have the power of language to draw attention. And it's important because you see, as quickly as you start using the language, it defines the narrative. And when you define the narrative, it puts people on the defense. So now the people who are being called white supremacists, who are being called racists, now we have defined the narrative as a narrative of white supremacy and racism. And so now they have to keep saying the words, right? The difference is that when you refuse to call a thing, it allows the oppressor and perpetrator to frame the narrative. It allows them to decide how we're going to perceive something. Yes, words mean things. I've been saying this since last year. Matter of fact, I looked it up on Twitter, and I had associated with words mean things with Gemini publicly at least since 2017. And so now here we are, after this Gemini eclipse, and waiting for these other eclipses in January of 2020, December 2019, and June of 2020. Words mean things. And now I'm not the only one that's saying it. Everyone is saying it. Now people are saying words matter, right? But words mean things is the whole tone of this moment. So my whole point is that now that we have defined the narrative as that of racism and white supremacy, it puts Donald Trump, the Republicans, and his minions on the defensive. And now they have to defend themselves and counter the narrative. But again, it makes them say the words, right? One of the things that reminds me of is if you watch the second Democratic debate the first night, and a lot of the candidates kept talking about, stop using Republican talking points, right? I mean, and I think that was the most powerful thing that anybody said last night. Stop allowing them to determine the narrative. Stop using their language. Language is used to shape perception. Again, an important theme of this Leo stellium that peaks at the end of August and beginning of September, that when you allow someone else to name you and define you, you exist solely as a projection of their identity. So do with that what you will. I'm about to get my nails done, and so go on Twitter, read the pinned tweet, and that'll tell you more about this week. You can peruse my timeline because it's all kind of stuff on there. People's Oracle on Twitter. Check out my blog. I've got some great words that I just put up. The name of the article is A Self-Determined Nation. Self-Determined Nation. That is the name of the blog post that you should read if you're interested in what we're dealing with and the next month of, thank you guys, the next month as this Leo stellium peaks. The wrap up is that we're leaving Cancer beginning tomorrow with Mars in Leo. We're shifting from a focus on our bodies and our immediate needs of food safety and self-shelter. The word home has been a huge one. So if you have the 2019 Sidereal Astrology Guide that I published at the end of last year, you would see that for the July summary, as I talked about planets piling up in Cancer, all of my questions were about home and mother. And you will have noticed over the past month, this idea of go home, where is home? Has been a hot topic. So we're shifting from that to really having some important conversations about authoritarianism, about how America fought the Revolutionary War in order to reject monarchical rule, and how we are slipping back into that reality with Donald Trump. We are hearkening back to August and September of 2017, whether that means violent clashes between protesters, white supremacists, torch-bearing Nazis. We are hearkening back to August and September of 2017 with regard to possible hurricanes and storms. And we are dealing with men, father, and the identity and sense of entitlement that we all have as reflected by the men in our lives and in our worlds. I'm going to be writing some horoscopes, so be on the lookout for that, just for your Leo house. There's some up on my Twitter page now. If you go look at my media tab, maybe I'll share it here on Instagram, but always sidereal, never tropical. Bye, y'all.